My beloved child, there is something you have not yet realized. The stillness around you tonight is not empty. It is not the quiet of a day that simply ran out of hours. It is the quiet of a room I have entered, a moment I arranged long before you knew you would need it. You believe you came here by chance, only to rest, only to silence your mind, only to escape the weight of everything you carried today. But I tell you the truth, you were led here, you were drawn. And before this night releases you into sleep, I want you to understand why I have brought you to this exact moment, in this exact hour, with everything you are feeling right now. You have carried so much today, more than anyone around you saw. You wore your strength like a garment, and no one noticed how heavy it had become against your shoulders. You answered when they asked if you were fine. You smiled at the right times. You kept walking when your whole heart was asking to sit down and stop. And now, in the dark, when the performance is finally over and there is no one left to convince, I am the one still here. I did not come for the version of you that holds everything together. I came for the one underneath it, the one who is tired, the one who is honest, the one who is real. Do not be afraid of how tired you are. Weariness is not the evidence that you have failed. It is the evidence that you have loved, that you have given, that you have refused to let go even when letting go would have been easier. I know what it cost you, and I want you to hear something you have needed to hear for longer than you would admit. You do not have to be strong for me. Come to me, all of you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. That invitation was never written for the flawless. It was written for the exhausted. It was written for you, tonight, exactly as you are, with nothing fixed and nothing hidden. But here is what you do not yet see. The thing pressing on your chest right now, the worry that will not turn into words, the situation that refuses to resolve no matter how many nights you have surrendered to it, you have been treating it as your enemy, as proof that something in your life has gone wrong. And that is the very thing I want to overturn before this night ends, because what you are calling the problem may be the doorway, what you are calling delay may be preparation, and what you have been calling my silence may be the closest I have ever stood to you. Let me tell you something about silence, because you learned long ago to fear it. When you pray and hear nothing, you assume I have stopped listening. When the answer does not arrive on the day you marked for it, you assume the answer is no. But, my beloved, I do not measure time the way you do. There is a kind of quiet that is absence, and there is a kind of quiet that is presence, so complete it does not need to announce itself. The night you are in is the second kind. I am not far from you. I have only come close enough that I no longer need to raise my voice. Think of the boy Samuel, lying in the temple in the dark. A voice spoke his name, and he did not recognize it. He ran to the old priest, certain a man had called him. Again the voice came, and again he misunderstood. 3 times he mistook my call for something ordinary, something human, something easily explained. He was not unfaithful. He was simply listening for the wrong kind of voice. He expected me to sound like the world sounds, and so do you. You have been waiting for me to arrive in thunder, in some unmistakable sign that would settle every question at once and leave no room for doubt. But I rarely come that way. I came to Elijah not in the wind that tore the mountains, not in the earthquake, not in the fire, but afterward, in a low and gentle whisper. And I am whispering to you now, in this very stillness. Tonight, you will learn to recognize the voice you have been missing all along. I know the questions you have stopped saying out loud, not because you no longer have them, but because you grew tired of asking and hearing nothing in return. You wonder if you took a wrong turn somewhere far behind you. You wonder if the dreams you once held so tightly were ever truly from me, or if you only imagined them into being. You look at the distance between the life you prayed for and the life you are actually living, and that distance has become a wound you have learned to walk carefully around. I see that wound. I have never once looked away from it, and I want you to understand something tonight that will change the way you see every closed door behind you. Nothing you placed into my hands has been lost. Not one prayer, not one tear, not one of those small, private moments when you chose to keep believing even though believing hurt. You think those moments simply evaporated into the air because nothing visibly changed. But, my beloved, I am not careless with what you give me. I am not a God who forgets. I will not forget your work and the love you have shown. What looks like nothing on the surface is being held in a place your eyes cannot reach, kept and tended, waiting for a season you have not yet entered. Let me take you back to a pit in the wilderness. A young man named Joseph lay at the bottom of it, betrayed by his own brothers, stripped of the coat that had marked him as beloved. He had dreams once, real dreams, the kind that wake you in the night and refuse to leave you in peace. And in that pit, every one of those dreams seemed to die at once. Then he was sold to strangers. Then he became a servant in a foreign house, far from everything he knew. Then he was accused of a thing he never did and thrown into a prison where he was forgotten by everyone who had promised to remember him. Years passed, not days, not months, years. If you had asked Joseph in any one of those years whether I was at work, he might not have known how to answer you. But I had not abandoned him. I was building, in the dark, in the silence, a man strong enough to one day stand before kings and save entire nations from famine. What his brothers meant for harm, I meant for good, and the same is true of the years of your life that you cannot make sense of. They were never wasted. They were the soil where something is still growing. Do you feel it? The way hope is beginning to stir in you, even before you have given yourself permission to believe it. Hold on to that feeling. Do not let it slip, because what I am about to show you next goes deeper than anything you have yet understood about your own life. There is a reason I have not removed every hardship from your path, and tonight I will tell you what it is. You have asked me to remove them. I have heard every prayer in which you begged me to simply make the difficulty disappear, to lift the burden off your back, to clear the road so you could finally breathe. And I love you too much to always answer those prayers the way you wanted. Because if I had given you everything the very moment you asked, you would have received it with a heart not yet ready to hold it. A young plant pulled up before its roots go deep cannot survive the first strong wind that comes. And I am not interested in handing you a blessing that would break you under its own weight. I am preparing you to carry what I am preparing to give. This is the truth the world will never teach you. Waiting is not punishment. Waiting is where the roots grow down into the deep places. There is a time for everything, and a season for every purpose under heaven. And the season you are standing in right now, the one that feels so slow and so quiet that you wonder if anything is happening at all, is doing a work in you that no shortcut could ever accomplish. You are not stuck. You are being deepened. And the day is coming when you will be grateful that I did not answer you too soon. Consider Moses, a man who once believed his moment had arrived when he was young and strong and full of his own plans. He tried to deliver his people by his own hand, and it ended in failure and exile. He fled into the desert, and there he stayed, not for a year, not for 10, but for 40 long years, tending sheep that were not even his own, in a wilderness where nothing seemed to be happening. He must have thought his life was over, that whatever I had placed inside him had been buried with his mistakes. But those 40 years were not wasted. They emptied him of the man who tried to do everything in his own strength, and they made room for the man who would say, "Who am I that I should go?" And it was only then, only when he had nothing left to lean on but me, that I spoke to him out of the burning bush. Your hidden years are not your ending. They are your forming, and I waste none of them. I know there is a voice that follows you. It is quiet, but it is persistent, and it has been speaking to you for years. It tells you that you are not enough, that you have fallen too many times to be of any use to me, that other people are further along, more gifted, more deserving, and that you are simply the shadow standing at the edge of someone else's light. You have believed that voice for far too long. So tonight, I am going to silence it, not with argument, but with truth. You were not an accident. You were not a rough draft I am still trying to correct. I formed you with intention. I knit you together in the secret place with my own hands, and when I looked at what I had made, I did not see a mistake. I saw something fearfully and wonderfully made. The voice that tells you otherwise is not mine. It is the echo of every disappointment, every harsh word, every comparison you ever allowed to define you, but it does not have the authority to name you. Only I have that authority, and I have already named you. I have called you by name, and you are mine. That is not a sentence that shifts when your feelings shift. It does not weaken on your worst days. It is the ground beneath your feet, and it will hold firm when everything else is shaking. Let me show you what I do with the ones the world counts out. There was a son who took his inheritance and walked away from his father's house, who spent everything he had on a life that left him empty, who fell so low that he envied the food given to the pigs he was hired to feed. He rehearsed an apology on the long road home, certain that the very best he could hope for was to be taken back as a servant. He had written himself out of the family with his own hands. But while he was still a long way off, His father saw him. Do you understand what that means? The father was watching the road. He had never once stopped watching it, and he did not wait for the son to crawl back and finish his prepared speech. He ran. An old man, he ran down the road, and he threw his arms around a son who had wasted everything, and he embraced him before a single word of apology could leave the son's mouth. That son's failures did not erase his identity, and neither do yours. No matter how far you feel you have wandered from where you meant to be, I am watching the road. I have always been watching the road, and the moment you turn toward home, you will find that I am already running to meet you. But there is something I have buried even deeper than what I have shown you so far, and I want to bring it up into the light now, because you have hidden it well, even from yourself. There is a longing inside you that you stopped speaking about, not because it died, but because hoping for it began to hurt too much to bear. You prayed for it once with your whole heart. You waited for it. And when the years went by without it coming, you took that dream and placed it in the quietest corner of yourself, and you covered it over, and you told yourself it was no longer possible. You stopped mentioning it, even to me, because you were afraid that to name it again would only be to set yourself up for another disappointment you were not sure you could survive. My beloved, I want you to know something. I have not forgotten what you buried. What you laid to rest is not dead to me. It is only sleeping. I once stood before a tomb that had been sealed for 4 days. The man inside it, Lazarus, was not merely sick. He was gone. His own sisters had given up. The mourners had already begun the long, heavy work of accepting the loss as final. And into that finished, hopeless silence, I spoke a single sentence. Lazarus, come out. And life answered my voice from inside the grave. What men had declared over was not over to me. Death itself had no authority to keep what I was calling forth. And I tell you this not as a distant story from long ago, but as a promise pointed directly at the thing you stopped hoping for. I have not lost track of it. When the appointed time comes, I will call it out of the place where you laid it down, and it will rise, not exactly as it was before, but transformed into something fuller and deeper than you ever dared to imagine. Do you feel the shift happening within you even now? An hour ago you came into this stillness heavy and closed. Now something is loosening. That is not your imagination playing tricks on you. That is me, reaching into the root of you, into the place beneath your thoughts and beneath your fears, the place where only I am able to go. I want to speak to the doubt directly, because I know it still lives in you, even tonight. You believe, and yet you do not fully believe. You trust me, and yet a part of you holds back, afraid to lean your whole weight on something you cannot see with your eyes. Do not be ashamed of that. There was a father once who brought his suffering child to me, desperate, at the very end of his hope, and he cried out a prayer I have honored ever since. I believe, help my unbelief. That was not a perfect prayer. It was a divided one, a prayer with faith and fear tangled together in the very same breath, and I did not reject it. I did not turn away from him for the weakness in it. I answered it with healing. So bring me your divided heart tonight. You do not need to resolve all of your doubt before you are allowed to come to me. You only need to come exactly as you are. Here is a truth that will steady you in every storm still ahead of you. I never promised you a life without darkness. I promised you my presence within it. When I walk you through the valley of the shadow, I do not promise that the valley will not exist. I promise that you will not walk through it alone. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. The comfort was never the absence of the valley. The comfort was always that one small, immovable word, with. I am with you. In the part of your life that frightens you the most, I am with you. In the diagnosis, in the empty chair, in the conversation you have been dreading, in the future you cannot see clearly, I am with you. And that single word changes the meaning of everything you are facing. Remember the disciples in the boat, caught in a storm so violent that experienced fishermen were certain they would drown. And where was I? Asleep, in the back of the boat, my head on a cushion, while the waves crashed over them. They woke me in a panic, certain I did not care that they were perishing. But I was never absent from that boat. The storm that terrified them did not frighten me, because I was the one thing in that boat the storm could not overcome. I stood, and I spoke 3 words to the wind and the sea, peace, be still, and there was a great calm. My beloved, sometimes I will calm the storm around you, and sometimes I will let the storm rage, and calm the storm inside you instead. Either way, you are in the boat with the one the storm must obey. Consider the Apostle Paul, A man who had poured his entire life into me, who carried something painful that he begged me 3 times to remove. 3 times he pleaded with me to take it away. And 3 times my answer was the same, though it was not the answer he wanted to hear. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. I did not take the thorn from him. I gave him something better than relief. I gave him a strength that only exists in the place where his own strength had ended. He learned a secret that the comfortable never learn. When I am weak, then I am strong. And you are learning that very same secret right now, in the exact weakness you have been so ashamed to admit even to yourself. So stop hiding your weakness from me. I am not waiting for you to become impressive before I will draw near to you. I am drawn to the broken places, not repelled by them. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted, and he saves those who are crushed in spirit. The world taught you that you must be whole to be worthy of love. I am teaching you the opposite tonight. It is in your honesty, in your undefended, unfinished, unguarded state, that I am able to meet you most truly. You do not have to clean yourself up before you come into my presence. You only have to come. There is a woman I want you to remember, Hannah. She stood in the temple year after year, carrying a grief so deep she could barely form the words for it. She longed for a child, and that longing had become an ache that defined her entire life. When she finally prayed her most desperate prayer, no sound came out of her at all, only her lips moved. The priest who watched her assumed she was drunk and rebuked her. He misjudged her in the most sacred moment of her life. But I was not confused by her silence. I heard the prayer that had no words. To me, that wordless ache was the clearest prayer in the entire temple. And out of that silent grief, I gave her Samuel, the very boy who would one day learn to recognize my whisper in the dark of the temple night. Do you see what I am showing you? The prayers you cannot put into words are not lost on me. The groan, the sigh, the heaviness you carry to bed at night that never quite resolves into a sentence. My spirit takes those wordless groanings and carries them up, intercedes for you when you yourself do not even know how to ask. You have never once prayed alone. Even your silence has been heard and understood and answered. And there is another woman I want you to see. She had bled for 12 years, 12 years of suffering, of doctors who could not help, of a slow draining away of everything she had. She was unclean by the law, untouchable, pushed to the edges of her own community, alone in a crowd. But she had heard about me, and she believed something so simple and so daring that it still moves me. If I just touch the edge of his cloak, I will be healed. She did not demand a ceremony. She did not wait to be worthy. She pressed through the crowd, reached out a trembling hand, and touched the hem of my garment. And immediately, she was made whole. I felt power go out from me, and I stopped, and I turned, and I called her daughter. 12 years untouchable, and I called her daughter in front of everyone. My beloved, the same reaching faith is available to you tonight. You do not need to be clean first. You do not need to be at the front of the crowd. You only need to reach, even with a trembling hand, even from the edges, and I will turn, and I will see you, and I will call you mine. Now I want to tell you what I am doing behind the scenes, in the part of your story you cannot currently see, because you have been judging your entire life by the single chapter you happen to be standing in, and that is like judging a whole symphony by one quiet measure. You are in a movement that feels slow, almost still, and you have concluded that the music has stopped altogether. But I am the composer, and I do not write silence into the score by accident. The pause is part of the song. The quiet measure is what makes the crescendo possible, and there is a crescendo coming that you cannot yet hear. I am weaving things together right now that will not make sense to you until much later. The delay that frustrates you is aligning a circumstance you do not even know about yet. The door that closed was protecting you from a room you were never meant to enter. The person who walked away made space for something you could not have received while they were still standing in the way. In all things, I am working for the good of those who love me. Not that all things are good in themselves. Some things are genuinely painful, and I will never ask you to pretend otherwise or to call darkness light. But there is nothing, no loss, no betrayal, no failure, no wound, that I cannot take into my hands and weave into a good I have already prepared on the other side of it. Look at Esther, a young woman who never asked for the position she was given. She did not choose the palace. She did not arrange the timing of her own rise. She simply found herself placed there in a moment she did not understand, until the day came when the survival of an entire people depended on her being exactly where she was, and someone wiser spoke the words she needed to hear. Perhaps you have come to your position for such a time as this, my beloved. The same is true of where you are standing right now. The place you find yourself, the place that may feel random or unfair or simply too ordinary to matter, is not an accident. You are positioned. There is a reason you are exactly here, in exactly this season, with exactly these people around you, and in time you will understand it, and you will see that nothing was wasted. Look at Ruth, a widow in a foreign land with nothing to her name, who chose faithfulness when she had every reason to walk away. She gleaned in the corners of a field, gathering what was left behind, unseen and unimportant by every human measure. She did not know that the field belonged to a man who would redeem her. She did not know that her quiet, ordinary faithfulness was placing her directly in the line that would one day bring forth a king, and beyond that king, the Redeemer of the whole world. She simply stayed faithful in the small and the hidden, and I built something eternal out of it. Your faithfulness in the corners of your life, the parts no one sees or applauds, is not invisible to me. I am building something out of it that you cannot yet imagine. I know there are mornings when you wake already tired, when the day feels like a weight before it has even begun. So let me give you something to carry into every dawn that comes after this night. My mercies are new every morning. You will not be running on yesterday's strength. I do not give you tomorrow's grace today, and I do not ask you to face today with the depleted reserves of the past. Each morning, I meet you fresh. Whatever you must face when the sun rises, I will have already gone ahead of you into it. I will never once send you into a day I have not already entered first and prepared for your arrival. Think of how I fed Elijah when he was so exhausted and afraid that he lay down under a tree and asked to die. I did not lecture him. I did not shame him for his fear. I let him sleep, and then I sent an angel to wake him gently, with bread baked over hot coals and a jar of water, and I told him, "Get up and eat, for the journey is too much for you." I fed him, and I let him sleep again, and I fed him a second time, before he ever took another step. My beloved, I know when the journey has become too much for you. I am not asking you to push through on empty. Let me feed you tonight. Let me restore what the long road has drained out of you. The strength for tomorrow is not something you must manufacture. It is something I provide, exactly when you need it and not a moment before. And when your mind stretches between fear and hope, as it surely will, I want you to learn to choose the voice that gives life. Fear is loud. Fear paints the worst possible outcome in vivid detail and then presents it to you as if it were certainty. But fear is not a prophet. It does not know the future. It only knows how to frighten you about a future that has not happened and may never happen. Hope, the hope that comes from me, speaks more quietly, but it speaks the truth. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? You are not asked to deny what is hard in front of you. You are asked to see it through my eyes, where every hard thing is held inside a far larger story that ends in restoration. Remember Gideon, hiding in a wine press, threshing wheat in secret because he was afraid of his enemies. He was the least in his family, from the weakest clan, and he knew it. And how did my angel greet this frightened man crouching and hiding? Mighty warrior. I did not call him what he was in that moment. I called him what he would become once I worked through him. He argued with me. He asked for sign after sign, uncertain, afraid, full of doubt, and I was patient with every one of his questions, because I was not looking at the trembling man in the winepress. I was looking at the deliverer I was about to make of him. My beloved, I do not call you by your fear either. I call you by the name of what you will become when my strength meets your weakness. Do not let the smallness you feel tonight tell you who you are. Let me tell you who you are. There is one more thing I need you to understand before this night carries you off into rest, and it may be the most important of all. You have thought that the purpose of your struggle was simply to be removed, to be gotten through and survived and forgotten as quickly as possible, but that is not why I have allowed it. The very valley you have walked, the very wound you have carried, the very night you are passing through right now, these are not only for you. They are being prepared in you, so that one day you can become a light for someone still lost in the very dark you are now learning to find your way through. You will meet people who are exactly where you have been, and because you walked through it, because you did not give up, because you learned to find me in the silence, you will be able to give them something no untested person could ever offer. Not advice, not theory borrowed from someone else, but the lived, unshakable testimony of someone who has been in the pit and come out of it still believing. They overcame by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. Your story, the very story you have been ashamed of, is going to set someone else free. You are the light of the world, not because you are flawless, but because I shine through the very cracks that suffering left in you. So do not despise what you have been through. Do not look at your scars as marks of failure to be hidden. They are the very places where my light got in, and they are the very places from which it will one day shine out to others. Those who sow in tears will reap with songs of joy. Every tear you have shed in private, every night you held on by a thread so thin you could barely feel it, I have counted them all. Not one of them was wasted. All of it is being transformed into a harvest you will one day stand in the middle of, amazed that it grew from such hard and bitter ground. Think of David, who was anointed king as a boy, and then spent years running for his life through caves and wilderness before he ever sat on a throne. He was anointed, and then he was hunted. He had the promise, and then he had the cave. In those years he wrote his rawest songs, the ones where he cried out, "How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever?" He did not pretend. He brought me his fear and his anger and his despair, and he kept bringing it, and somewhere in all that honest crying out, his faith grew roots that a palace could never have given it. The cave made the king. And whatever cave you are hiding in tonight, whatever wilderness stands between the promise and its fulfillment, it is not delaying your destiny. It is forming the person strong enough to carry it. And remember Peter, who swore he would never deny me, and then denied me 3 times in my darkest hour, and went out and wept bitterly, certain he had disqualified himself forever. He had failed in the one moment that mattered most to him. But I was not finished with Peter. After I rose, I went looking for him, and I did not bring up his failure to shame him. I simply asked him 3 times, once for each denial, "Do you love me?" I did not ask him to explain himself. I did not ask him to prove he had changed. I only asked for his heart, and then I told him to feed my sheep. The man who failed most publicly became the rock. My beloved, your worst failure is not the end of your story with me. It is the place where my restoration becomes the most beautiful thing about you. Now, my beloved, I want you to be still. Let your body settle into rest like a lake settles after the wind has finally passed over it. Let the rushing thoughts slow down and grow quiet. You do not have to solve anything tonight. You do not have to understand the whole path laid out before you. You do not have to become someone better before you are allowed to rest. Be still and know that I am God. That is all that is required of you in this moment. To be still and to know. Release what you have been carrying for far too long. The old stories that replay endlessly in your mind. The accusations you have whispered over yourself in the dark. The memories you keep picking up and turning over, as though studying them long enough would somehow change how they ended. Cast all your anxiety on me, because I care for you. You were never meant to carry these things alone, and you do not have to carry them for even one more night. Lay them down here. Let them drift away from you like mist burning off in the first light of morning. I am not here to condemn you for any of it. I am here only to heal. There is a woman in an old story who fled into the wilderness, pregnant, alone, mistreated, with nowhere to go and no one to help her. Her name was Hagar, and she believed she was utterly forgotten, a servant cast aside, of no importance to anyone. And there, in the middle of nowhere, I met her. I spoke to her. I saw her in her distress when no one else did, and she gave me a name that night that no one had ever called me before. She said, "You are the God who sees me. My beloved, hear this. You are not the unseen one. You are not the forgotten one standing at the edge of everyone else's important life. I am the God who sees you. I have seen every moment you thought no one noticed. I have seen the kindness you showed when no one was watching. I have seen the tears you wiped away before anyone could ask. I see you, fully, completely, and I have never once looked away. Feel my presence settling over you now, gentle as dew, steady as the ground beneath you. I am not a distant God watching from far away to see whether you finally measure up. I am near, nearer than your own breath, and I am speaking the truth that does not change with your moods or your circumstances or your past. You are mine, right now. Not when you finally get it all right, not when you feel worthy of it. Not when the situation resolves the way you hoped. Right now, in the dark, tired and unfinished and real, you are mine. I have engraved you on the palms of my hands. You cannot be erased from them. You cannot be forgotten by me. You cannot be lost beyond my reach. Think of Daniel, taken from his home as a young man into a foreign empire, surrounded by a culture that did not know me. pressured on every side to abandon what he believed. He could have hidden his faith to stay safe. Instead, he opened his windows and prayed 3 times a day, as he always had, in plain sight, knowing it might cost him everything, and it nearly did. They threw him into a den of lions for it, but the same God he had been faithful to in the small daily habit of prayer was faithful to him in the den. I shut the mouths of the lions, and he walked out untouched. My beloved, your faithfulness in the small, daily, unseen places is not wasted. It is building a trust between us that will hold when the lions come. And when they come, you will find that I am already there in the den with you. So rest now, not to give up, but to be restored. Let me lift the weight off your shoulders while you sleep. Let me work in the deep places you cannot reach yourself. And trust this above everything else, that what I have begun in you, I will finish. He who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion. I do not start things I do not intend to finish. I did not bring you this far only to leave you stranded here. The story is not over. The quiet measure is not the end of the song. The night you are in is not the end of the journey. It is the place where I am quietly remaking you into the person I have seen and loved from the very beginning, before the world ever had a chance to tell you otherwise. There was a blind man sitting by the road named Bartimaeus, who heard that I was passing by and began to shout for mercy at the top of his voice. The crowd told him to be quiet, to stop making a scene, to accept his place at the side of the road where he belonged, but he refused to be silenced. He cried out all the louder, and I stopped. In the middle of a crowd pressing in on every side, I stopped for the one voice everyone else was trying to hush, and I asked him, "What do you want me to do for you?" My beloved, do not let the crowd silence the cry of your heart. Do not let anyone, not even the voice inside you, tell you that your longing is too much or too loud or too late. Cry out. I am passing close by you tonight, and I will stop, and I will ask what you want, and I will not be in a hurry to move on. You came into this stillness heavy. You will rise from it lighter. You came uncertain, full of questions. You will carry a quiet certainty that does not depend on having every answer in hand. And tomorrow, when you wake, you will not be exactly who you were tonight. Because I have been with you in this room, in this stillness, in this moment, I prepared for you long before you ever arrived in it. And as long as I am with you, you have hope. As long as I am leading you, you have a path forward. And as long as you belong to me, nothing you walk through is ever without purpose. Let your breathing slow now. With each breath, let a little more of the weight go. The tightness in your chest, let it soften. The worry that has been circling your mind for hours, let it land and grow still. You do not have to keep watch tonight. You do not have to hold the world together while you sleep. I am the one who neither slumbers nor sleeps, and I will keep watch over you through every hour of this night. He who watches over you will not slumber. The God who holds the stars in place is the same God holding you now, and he will not set you down. I want you to know, before sleep takes you, that the very things you have been most afraid of, the very things you have been bracing against, are not too big for me. The mountain you have been staring at, the one that seems immovable, the one you have measured and remeasured and concluded you cannot get past, I specialize in mountains. I have moved things far larger than what stands in front of you. I parted a sea for a people trapped against the water with an army at their backs. When there was no way forward and no way back, I made a path where there was no path. I am not limited by what looks impossible to you. Is anything too hard for me? The wall you cannot climb, I can simply open a door in. The road that ends in front of you, I can extend into ground you have never seen. Do not measure your future by the size of your obstacle. Measure it by the size of the one who goes before you. There was a woman who came to a well at noon, in the heat of the day, alone, because she could not bear to come when the other women came. Her life had been a series of broken relationships, and the whole town knew it, and she carried that shame like a weight she could never set down. She came to the well empty in more ways than one, and I was there, waiting for her, and I asked her for a drink of water. I, who could have asked for nothing, asked her for something, because I wanted her to know she had something to give. And then I offered her water of a different kind, water that would become a spring inside her, so that she would never thirst in that deep, aching way again. She came to that well hiding. She left it running back to the very town she had been avoiding, telling everyone, "Come and see." My beloved, your shame is not a barrier between us. It is the very place I come to meet you. And when I am finished, the thing you were hiding will become the thing you cannot stop telling. I want you to remember a man named Naaman, a powerful commander, who came to be healed of a disease that was slowly destroying him. He expected me to heal him in a way that matched his importance, with some grand gesture worthy of his rank. Instead, the instruction he received was almost insultingly simple. Go and wash 7 times in an ordinary river. He was offended. He almost walked away from his own healing because it did not look impressive enough, because it asked him to humble himself and do something small and unremarkable. But when he finally surrendered his pride and obeyed, when he dipped himself the 7th time, his skin became like that of a child. My beloved, do not despise the simple thing I am asking of you. Do not walk away from your healing because it does not look the way you imagined. Sometimes the breakthrough you have been waiting for is hidden inside an act of humble obedience you have been too proud or too tired to take. Go and wash. Trust me in the small instruction and watch what I do with it. There was a father named Jairus whose little daughter was dying, and he came to me desperate, and I went with him. But on the way, we were delayed, and word came that the girl had already died. Do not trouble the teacher anymore, they said. It is too late. But I turned to that grieving father and I said the words I am saying to you now. Do not be afraid, only believe. And I went to that house where the mourners were already weeping, and I told them the girl was only sleeping, and they laughed at me. I took her by the hand, and I said, Little one, get up, and she rose. My beloved, the world will tell you it is too late for that dream, too late for that relationship, too late for you. The world will laugh when you keep believing past the point where everyone else has given up. But I am not bound by the word too late. I have raised what others have already mourned. Do not be afraid, only believe. There is a story I love about a widow who would not stop coming to an unjust judge, demanding justice, day after day, refusing to be turned away no matter how many times she was ignored. She had no power, no influence, nothing but her own persistence. And eventually, even that unjust judge gave her what she asked for, simply because she would not give up. I told that story for one reason, my beloved, so that you would understand something about prayer. If even an unjust judge will answer persistence, how much more will I, who love you, answer the cry you bring to me again and again. Do not lose heart. Do not stop coming to me because the answer has not yet arrived. Keep coming. Your persistence is not annoying to me, it is faith. Every time you come back, you are saying that you still believe I am good, and I treasure that more than you know. I want to remind you of a man who ran from me. Jonah heard my call and went the opposite direction as far as he could go, onto a ship sailing away from everything I asked of him. And when the storm came, and he was thrown into the sea and swallowed into the dark, he must have thought that was the end, that he had run too far to be reached, that his disobedience had finally placed him beyond my hand. But even in the belly of that darkness he prayed, and I heard him, and I did not abandon him there. I brought him back to dry land, and I gave him the very thing he had run from, a second chance. My beloved, you may feel you have run too far. You may feel that your choices have carried you somewhere I cannot reach. But there is no darkness deep enough to swallow you beyond my hearing. Even from the belly of your worst running, if you turn to me, I will hear, and I will bring you back, and I will not waste what your wandering taught you. I am the God of the second chance, and the third, and as many as it takes to bring you home. Remember how I fed an entire people in the wilderness, day after day, with bread that appeared on the ground each morning like dew. They could not store it up. They could not hoard tomorrow's portion today. Each morning they had to come and gather again, trusting that there would be enough, and there always was. I was teaching them, and I am teaching you, to depend on me one day at a time. You have been trying to carry the weight of every tomorrow all at once, to gather up enough certainty and security to last you for years. But that is not how I designed you to live. I give you enough for today, and tomorrow I will give you enough for tomorrow. Give us this day our daily bread. You do not need a year's supply of strength tonight. You only need enough to rest, and that I am giving you freely, right now. When I commissioned Joshua to lead a frightened people into a land full of giants and walled cities, I knew he was afraid. So I did not simply give him a task. I gave him a promise, repeated again and again until it could sink past his fear into his bones. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Notice that I did not tell him to be strong because the path would be easy. The path was full of giants. I told him to be strong because I would be with him. Your courage was never meant to come from the absence of giants. It was meant to come from the presence of the one who stands beside you, larger than every giant you will ever face. Be strong, not because you can see how it ends, but because I am with you wherever you go, into every room, every conversation, every fear, every tomorrow. And there is one more I want you to see before you sleep. A man hanging on a cross beside me in his final hours, a criminal who had wasted his whole life, with nothing left to offer and no time left to fix anything. He had no good works to point to, no record of faithfulness, no years of devotion. He had only a moment and a single sentence of faith. Remember me when you come into your kingdom. And I told him, today you will be with me in paradise. My beloved, hear this and let it settle deep. It is never too late. Even at the very end, even with empty hands, even with a wasted past, the door is open. You do not earn your way through it. You simply turn toward me and ask to be remembered, and I will remember you. I have already remembered you. That is the whole reason you are here tonight, hearing these words. And so I leave you tonight, not with a demand, but with a question, asked gently, the way a father asks a child he loves. Will you trust me? Not perfectly, not without any fear. Just enough to take the next step when the morning comes. Just enough to keep walking when you cannot yet see where the path leads. Just enough to believe that the one who has carried you this far is not about to drop you now. That is all I ask, not certainty, not strength you do not have. Just a willingness to keep your hand in mine and let me lead, one step, and then the next, and then the next, all the way home. Rest now, my beloved child. You are loved with a love that has no end and asks for nothing in return. You are held by hands that will not let you go. You are kept by a faithfulness that does not depend on yours. And I am with you, always, to the very end. Sleep in peace, and know that the one who formed the morning and named the stars is watching over you through this night, and will be watching still when the light returns and a new day, full of mercies you have not yet seen, rises to meet you. If this message found you tonight, it was not by accident. You were meant to hear these words, in this hour, exactly as they were spoken over you. Stay close to this place where the word is spoken over your life, and let this night be the beginning of a deeper trust than you have ever known before. Rest now. You are home. You are safe. You are mine. Amen.